Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Thursday. It's August 22nd. It is 2024. We have a 5-game main slate with a 6:40 p.m. Eastern start, I think. Joined today by my friend Christy Metzger. You all know her in the DFS streets as Krayton12, always in those live final seats, taking them down. Christy, what's happening?
Not too much, Stevie. Good to be on the show. It's been a little bit. So nice small game slate for us, and kind of crazy that we're winding down on MLB already, and football's not just right around the corner too. So yeah, glad we still have some baseball though to break down. It's definitely one of my faves.
Oh yeah, love baseball. Had a good early slate. I finished third on DraftKings in the tournament, so that was always nice.
Nice.
Um, Austin Slater of all people.
Exactly.
Yeah, just sometimes those value plays are just the difference makers, and he was a difference maker for me. So hope everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday night. I would be doing much better if the Royals could just plate some runs. I mean, they're hitting. They hit Cueto. They just didn't score runs. So a little tilted by that. It's a smaller 5-game slate here on Thursday, but we have pitching. We have plenty of pitching, and let's talk about it. We get started with the early game, the 6:40 p.m. Eastern game, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, 7.5 total. Pittsburgh a 146 favorite. Nick Lodolo against Paul Skeens. I feel like Paul Skeens, we don't get to talk about him a lot on the podcast because Pittsburgh does the 6:40 games all the time, and they usually exclude these games because it's a 5-game slate. So I can't wait to talk about him. But let's start on the other side. Nick Lodolo. Any interest here in Lodolo against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I do. I know he's last outing. He certainly struggled, but he is somebody I have interest in. I think he has a good matchup here, and he has a decent strikeout rate, 23.8% on the year, pretty low walk rate. He's had a couple of struggles, I guess, the last couple of outings, but he does get a nice matchup here against Pittsburgh. So I certainly have some interest.
Yeah, I mean, I slight interest. I think that we have really good pitching options on this slate. And the one thing that I will say is this lineup's really bad against left-handed pitching. We kind of saw it yesterday or today, whenever you listen to the podcast. Andrew Heaney had a really solid outing against them. So I could see Lodolo having like an Andrew Heaney type of outing against them. So, I mean, 8K is a lot, but I mean, they don't walk. They only have a couple bats with power in this lineup, and they strike out a ton. So I could definitely see myself. And this game's in Pittsburgh. It's not in Cincinnati. So that also helps the pitching here. Paul Skeens, I mean, listen, we have Dylan Cease. We'll talk about Burns, Swollenbach. Like, we have arms, but, I mean, I just don't see how you don't have Skeens as the top guy on this slate. Cincinnati, really young, talented team. They strike out a lot, and he strikes people out at a huge clip.
Yeah, absolutely. It just lines up as definitely one of the best matchups for him. And you're exactly right. We really haven't had a chance to talk about him much because he hasn't been on a lot of the main slates. But absolutely, he's below 10K. I mean, he has come down to earth just a little bit, but my goodness, his K rate still 31.7% on the year, low walk rate. And yeah, Cincinnati strikes out a ton. So got to have a lot of interest in him, and definitely the top pitcher for me, and great matchup as well.
Yeah, I mean, his strikeouts have slowed down a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I have ice in my mouth. I'm sorry, everybody. I have a drink that has like a really wide thing that you drink out of, and I just got too much ice. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, the strikeout rate has dipped a little bit, but I mean, you're getting a guy with a 13% swinging strike rate, over a 25% whiff rate, in a great ballpark, pitching at home against a young team that, I mean, they have upside. Don't get me wrong. Cincinnati has upside, but they can strike out with the best of them. Any interest here in the Cincinnati bats?
Yeah, I really don't. I've actually been playing Cincinnati a ton. In fact, I've got a stack of them tonight, and they've been hitting home runs, stealing bases, things like that. But to your point, they strike out at a really big clip, and Skeens has been absolutely dominant. And it's, in a good pitcher's park, like you mentioned. He's pitching at home, and he's one of the best pitchers in MLB. So I really don't have a lot of interest in Cincinnati. I think if you do play them, you're just really hoping that, Skeens, they get to Skeens. But for me, it's Skeens and no Cincinnati interest really for me tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those small 5-game slates. I'm going to play a lot of Skeens, and if Cincinnati beats me, they beat me. Like you, I had De La Cruz, somebody that I really liked on Wednesday night, and was an awesome pivot off of Bobby Witt, and he's having a game. So massive upside of these guys, but I just don't think I could do it against Skeens today. And even on the Pittsburgh side, I mean, on DraftKings, I think you could take some shots on Joey Bart.
Yep.
He's a catcher under 4K with power against left-handed pitching. But outside of that, they just don't have a lot of power, and that's one of the reasons why we're kind of slightly interested in Lodolo here.
That's exactly right. Yep. I just don't have interest in Pittsburgh as a full stack, and have interest in Lodolo a little bit for sure. I kind of circled Bart too. I think, more as a one-off play, but definitely not looking to stack Pittsburgh at all on this slate.
All right, moving on. We got the Angels and the Blue Jays, 8.5 total. Toronto, 168 favorite. Griffin Canning, Jake Bloss. Any interest here in Griffin Canning?
No, not at all. I have interest on the other side, stacking against him. So, no Canning for me.
Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. I'm with you, by the way. I have interest in the Blue Jays today. But, I mean, Canning, 16.5% K rate guy, almost a 200 ISO, 350 WOBA, 49% hard hits, just not missing a lot of bats. I mean, just not even thinking twice about it for me. I can't do it against Toronto. I mean, Toronto, a team that doesn't necessarily strike out a ton either. So I think this is an easy stay away spot for me. Any interest here in Jake Blouse on the other side against the Angels?
I really don't. I mean, he's 7,700. 20% K rate. He does struggle quite a bit with. He gives up a lot of power too. So I really don't have a lot of interest in him either.
Yeah. So when I opened up the slate, and I was getting started on my research, and I was like, oh, maybe I can play him. And then I opened up DraftKings because, again, I always do first look pricing on the podcast. I've done that for years, and I got super excited because I saw 5K, and then I realized it was Canning at 5K. If Bloss was like 5K here, sure. Against the Angels, 7,700 for a guy that hasn't been missing bats very often. I mean, 20%, right around average, a little bit under average, really struggling with power to both sides. If he was really cheap, sure.
Yes.
I think he's too expensive. I would rather play Lodolo, who we just got done talking about, for $300 more. Angels bats, and this is one of the reasons that you're like, oh, if he has 5K, maybe, because it's like the Angels bats. It's like, anything here for Anaheim?
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly get Taylor Ward. You could certainly play, a few of the bats, but I don't have a ton of interest in them. I just don't. They were in a good matchup again tonight and just really haven't done much. So I think there's just other bats that I'm looking to get to, and we'll get to Toronto here shortly, but, definitely a lot of interest on the other side.
I mean, if you get some cheap bats here, maybe. Who do you get excited about to play with the Angels? I mean, that's the problem. Like, the guy that I would play is Ohapi. Catcher with power, but I'm not even excited about that. Zach Nato is another guy that I don't necessarily hate playing. And I mean, this would be the kind of slate where you could potentially do it if you're not going to pay up for Henderson, because I think Henderson's the clear shortstop option if you're not paying up for De La Cruz against Skeens. So the other shortstop that we typically pay up for, even on a 5-game slate, they're just really expensive. So, like, if you wanted to save some money and go down to Nato at shortstop, I don't necessarily hate that. Or you just kind of blindly play a 3-man of the Angels, like 2, 3, 4 or something, and just hope that they hit them. I mean, again, he's a very hittable pitcher. Other side of this game, Griffin Canning, he's been really bad recently. A lot of interest in Vlad, a lot of interest in Springer. Again, we keep talking about how they've shifted their swing and they're hitting more fly balls. I think that's what you're looking for, obviously, in this spot. We should honorable mention, because it is the morning grind, so any old listeners that have been around for a long time, Joey Votto officially announced his retirement on Wednesday. Had to mention it. Anybody that's ever listened before, everybody knows my thoughts on Joey Votto. But yeah, what are your thoughts here on Toronto?
Yeah, I absolutely love them. I think Vlad is, one of the top bats for sure on the slate. George Springer, he hit another home run tonight. I mean, they've just been hitting so well. You kind of spoke to that a little bit. Dalton Varsho, and then there's quite a few cheap bats in the lineup too. Spencer Horwitz, some of those guys that I think can give us some good value in there too, which we're going to need if we want Skeens and if we want to pay up for any other pitchers. So yeah, I think Toronto's a great stack. I think they grade out great and definitely want to have a lot of exposure to them.
Yeah, Wagner's still way too cheap.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the fact that he got the day off on Wednesday helps us because, I mean, his price just continues to stay down. But
yes.
Yeah, overall, and like even talking about like Wagner, what's interesting is like if you're playing Vlad at first, you could play Horwitz at second to be different in your stacks. Because I like Horwitz in the spot too. So in team chalky Toronto pivot, which is fantastic. So I have to give Joel a shout out. He said choke up for Joey. That was I couldn't have said it better myself. Moving on, Houston at Baltimore. 8 total in this game. Baltimore 170 favorite. Spencer Arrighetti against Corbin Burns. Any interest here in Spencer?
I have played him, a decent amount this year, actually. I mean, he's had some really good games. I think I could see getting to him. He's only 7,500. I just think Baltimore is in a really nice spot here too for tournaments. And I mean, they've just been leading the majors in ISO all season long. The upside is huge. You talked a little bit about Gunnar Henderson being the top plays at shortstop, but I mean, they just have such a potent lineup that I have a lot of interest, probably more interest on the Baltimore side, but I obviously don't hate the idea of getting to Arrighetti too in his price.
Love Baltimore is my favorite stack on the slate. I'm just not even going to spoil it, but I guess I am technically spoiling it. I love Baltimore today. I am not in the camp of thinking that Spencer Arrighetti is good. So I am definitely not playing him in this spot. Listen, the strikeouts have been a lot better for him, recently. But you look at some of those. You look at some of these like matchups he's had. He's had some really good strikeout matchups down the stretch too, which has definitely helped his strikeout rate. He did strike out 13 against Boston. Congratulations, that's a really good game. That's a really good team against right-handed pitching. So, but yeah, I mean, just not playing him. I love the Baltimore stack here. Going to load up on Baltimore, and then Corbin Burns. I mean, just not the same guy that we're used to playing. I was writing about this the other day. His strikeout rate 23%, one of the lowest strikeout rates we've seen from him.
Exactly.
Any interest in Burns here?
Yeah, I don't. I was going to say the same thing. He's just not the same guy this year. I haven't played a lot of him, and I think Houston, is going to be a tough matchup for him. And like you said, his K rate is all the way down to 23%. So no, I don't. He's at that 8,700 price point. Yeah, definitely prefer Skeens, Lodolo that we talked about a little bit. So yeah, that's going to be a pass for me as well.
Really quick before we move to the bats here, we had a question in chat going back to the Toronto side. I know you play a lot on FanDuel. Would you play Vlad at first base or third base if you're stacking Toronto?
Yeah, I haven't even looked at I'd probably end up playing him at third actually. And keep first base open. But yeah, I have not actually looked at FanDuel yet to see how the lineup construction looks.
Well, yeah, you also have like the utility. So I mean, stacking on FanDuel, stacking on FanDuel just it's so much easier roster construction wise because of the utility. So I mean, that's just my opinion. I made money on FanDuel today too. What up? All right. Houston bats. Listen, Burns, even though he's not like striking people out at a huge clip, is still not a bad pitcher. I like to target home runs against him. I mean, obviously, Jordan Alvarez, if you can afford him, would be up towards the top of the list. Bregman returned to the lineup on Wednesday with a home run. So that was good to see. You know, he was banged up there. I really like Jordan Alvarez. I don't think I full stack. I don't even think I secondary stack Houston today. I think I just chase home runs against Burns.
Yep. I completely agree. I just think, I think Alvarez is obviously one of the top plays on the slate too. He's right up there with Vlad and Henderson, but yeah, maybe just like you said, home run hunting for sure.
Dean's in chat talking about his MJ Melendez. Do you chat remember when Dean was telling me that De La Cruz was not a good play? I remember that. I'll have to clip that for him. And saying that Jonathan India doesn't have any upside.
Oh,
rough scene, Dean. Rough scene. Hey, listen, I always say if you pick a guy under the 4K to get 2 hits and he hits a home run, it counts as 2 hits. So, listen, good job, Dean. Good job, Dean. Good job. The other side, I mean, I kind of already said it. I love Baltimore in this spot. I'll let you give your thoughts here on the Orioles.
Yeah, I do too. A lot of times I'm doing the expert survey and such on weekends, and it seems like the Orioles just go under-owned quite a bit, and they just make such a great tournament stack each and every night. And the upside is right up there as the top baseball MLB teams that we have access to. So I absolutely love Baltimore too. I think Henderson is great. I mean, Santander has been great. Mullins, Cowser, you've got some cheap bats, Holiday, depending on who cracks the lineup. But there's, even some value in there that makes the stack really, really attractive.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love Baltimore here. Santander, Henderson, Cowser if he hits leadoff. My boy,
I like
Jackson Holiday. Like, just listen, Baltimore is going to be my highest owned stack here.
Mm-hmm.
Not even remotely like thinking twice about it. Philadelphia at Atlanta. 8 total in this game. We got a pick'em game. Sanchez against Schwallenbach. Let's go to Christopher Sanchez first. Watered down Atlanta lineup. Sanchez, kind of a guy that can do things. Any interest in Sanchez?
I do, because he is cheap. I mean, he's $7K, so he allows you to do some things with your lineup. Especially if you're looking to get some bigger bats in there and trying to get Skeens in there too. So like you said, Atlanta's lineup is a little watered down. I mean, you still have guys like Ozuna in that lineup that could certainly give him fits. But yeah, I mean, I certainly don't mind it. And he's definitely someone that I'll, consider and have in my pool for sure.
I kind of have interest in him too. One, because you look at the Atlanta lineup against left-handed pitching, and they strike out a lot. So Sanchez is not a huge strikeout guy, but he does a phenomenal job of generating ground balls, and in the matchup could potentially pick up maybe 1 or 2 more strikeouts. So like 7 clean innings with like maybe 1 earned run and a couple extra strikeouts puts him at like 5 or 6. We're talking at 7K at that point. So, I mean, I think Sanchez is okay. He's not a dominating pitcher, but he's a good real life pitcher. So slight interest. I mean, I have interest in Schwallenbach. I mean, this is a guy that I love his strikeout stuff. And Philadelphia is a very scary offense, and I don't like playing right-handed pitching against them. But I'm actually kind of like believing in the hype on Schwallenbach. I mean, the guy, his splitter is dirty. Go enjoy Pitching Ninja with Schwallenbach's splitter. It is nasty. Any interest in him in this spot?
I do. I mean, you look at him. I mean, the K rate, he's at 27.5% on the season. I mean, he's at a decent price point too. He's definitely gotten priced up at 8,500, but I definitely think he's worth it. I mean, he's had 8Ks, 7Ks, 10, 11, 8 in his last outings. And I definitely think you have to have interest. I mean, I think, yes, Philadelphia is a scary lineup, and you've got Schwarber and Harper, but, I think if you can get around those guys, I think he could have a fine outing for sure. So I do have interest in him.
I just like the strikeout ups. We just don't have a lot of
No.
strikeout upside outside of Skeens. Like Skeens' strikeout prop is at 6.5. So I mean, I like the strikeout potential here. If he could keep the control under and not give up like 1 or 2 big hits, I like the strikeout upside. And I also like him because I don't expect him to be popular at all. So that's another thing that I like. Philadelphia bats on teams that I am not playing Schwallenbach. I mean, you take shots on Schwarber, Harper, build around that stack. But I think again, I am a believer in what I'm seeing out of this kid. It would be power lefties against him.
Yep, exactly. I actually wrote down the same thing. Like if I'm not playing him, I'm just gonna, not looking to stack Philadelphia, but looking to get, Harper, Schwarber together or as one-offs. I think they're fine in your non-Schollenbach lineups for sure.
Any interest in the Atlanta side here?
This is probably not a stack, not looking to stack it, maybe picking off some bats too, like kind of Ozuna or probably mostly just Ozuna for me, actually. Just not looking to stack them up against Sanchez. More interested in him, like we talked about, as a pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, Ozuna is kind of a neutral fly ball, ground ball guy, so he doesn't necessarily get a bump. You really want to target fly ball guys against a guy like Sanchez who just generates so many ground balls. So, I mean, if anything, maybe like a Sean Murphy would be very interesting here. Chat saying Arcia hits the ball on the ground too much. Like he's a ground ball pitcher that's going to generate ground balls. So you really want to target the fly ball guys. So, I mean, Ozuna, Sean Murphy, maybe even a little bit of Whit Merrifield. But Whit is a guy that, I mean, he is not barreling the ball at all. So it's really tough to say, hey, play Whit Merrifield.
Right.
All right, we finished out the slate. Those are we got 3 games at 7, 1 game at 6:40, and then we go all the way to 9:40. These early games would be kind of ending, and then we get the Mets and the Padres to finish off the slate. Severino against Cease, 7 total. Dylan Cease, a 146 favorite here. Any interest in Severino?
I really don't. I know he had a good outing in his last outing. He's cheap. He's just 6,800. He can put up some good games, that's for sure, but I just don't have a ton of interest in him. I'm probably more interested on the stacks against him with San Diego. So not a lot of interest for me.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego just continues to hit right-handed pitching. They have the lowest strikeout rate in baseball. They only have 1 hitter in their lineup right now with a strikeout rate over 20% against right-handed pitching, and it's the catcher. I mean, they're hitting right-handed pitching. So Severino, below average strikeout guy, struggles with left-handed hitters, and I mean, they should get 5 to 7 lefties in this lineup. So I'm with you. No interest in Severino. Slight interest in Cease. I mean, I like the win opportunity here for Cease because we are going to talk about the Padres bats against Severino. 9,400. He really hasn't shown a ton of strikeout stuff recently, and he's had some good matchups. Like he had Miami in Miami, he had Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. And the strikeouts, what happened in the Pittsburgh game? I have to look that up. He only pitched 1 inning in that game. But anyway, yeah, I mean, the strikeouts are concerning, but I mean, I don't necessarily hate the matchup. I don't hate the fact that this is the really standalone late game ownership wise. What are your thoughts here on Cease?
Yeah, I'm really torn on this one too. I mean, he's got a great K rate, but he has struggled, and he's had, like you mentioned, he's had some good matchups. He just hasn't been able to do much, but he certainly does have upside. He's had, some big games earlier, kind of mid-season or so. So don't hate it for GPPs. There's just other pitchers that I liked better that we talked a little bit about. So I'm probably not going to get a lot to him, but I certainly don't mind the play in GPPs.
So chat just told me, this is why I love YouTube chat. And listen, I try to keep track of all this stuff, but it's impossible to keep track of it all. The Pittsburgh game was a rain delay game. So I remember whoever I did the podcast with that night bet a ton of unders because of Kevin Roth, and they played 1 inning. Yeah,
I remember that. That's right.
So I think it was Dean, actually. I'm pretty sure it might have been Dean. I can't remember who it was. But I shouldn't give him that much credit. It was all Kevin Roth. It was all
Exactly.
Kevin Roth. Mets bats. What are your thoughts here on the Mets bats?
I'm probably personally not going to get a lot of them. I mean, I think, I respect Cease but at the same time, the Mets have been performing very, very well. And I think for GPPs, I think, don't hate it. Like you said, they're the late game just to get different. I mean, there's certainly some bats in there that can do some damage. So yeah, don't mind it, I guess, for GPPs.
Don't know if I could do it today. Like in this ballpark against Cease, maybe. Like I hear what you're saying, right? Like they have been hitting the ball really solidly recently. I can't disagree with you. Vientos has been scorching.
Hasn't he though?
Pete Alonso has been great. One of the reasons I like Cease though is like the Mets have been hitting harder, but they've also been striking out a ton recently. So, I mean, listen, it's your normal people, right? Like if you're going to play Mets, it's Lindor, it's Vientos, it's Nimmo, it's Alonso, it's JD Martinez. Like it's the normal guys, but I think Vientos would be at the top of my list. Even on like teams that I'm not stacking and I just I feel like I need a good third baseman. I think he's one of the top third basemen today. And a good pivot off of a guy like Clement, who's probably going to get pretty good amount of ownership today because Toronto is going to be chalky. Mm-hmm. San Diego, listen, I hate playing the Padres, but I mean, it's hard not to like them against Severino today.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, I think, getting the guys I see like Jackson Merrill hit another home run here tonight. But yeah, I certainly don't mind putting them together as a stack. I mean, I too, tend to get them wrong more than I get them right, but I do think they make for a good stack for sure. So don't mind getting to them. And again, it's kind of nice having that late game, and you can get a little bit different because, I think a lot of the earlier games are going to carry, kind of most of the ownership. So certainly don't mind a San Diego stack.
All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we will get out of here. Nice little Thursday 5-game slate. A lot of, pitching wise, I think there's 3 to 5 pitchers you could feel pretty comfortable about, and hitting. You could be contrarian. There are a lot of different ways to be contrarian on this slate from what we're seeing here. So under 8K to get 6 or more strikeouts using DraftKings pricing. Who do you got for us to get some strikeouts that's cheap?
Yeah, so for cheap, I guess I'm going to go with Sanchez on that and take a chance on him.
Yeah, we were talking about it, right? He's the guy that I was going to pick too. He's a guy that typically 3 or 4-ish strikeouts. You add that lineup in there, maybe he gets that 2 extra and gets that 6. So, yeah, he was my pick as well. If I had to pick anybody else, I'd actually pick Bloss because the Angels strike out a lot. So, over 8K to score under 15. Who is your bust today?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Corbin Burns. Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
He's just not good.
No, he's just, I don't even know if I would necessarily say that he's not good. I think it's just more of like, we're used to like 30% strikeout Corbin Burns, and he's just not there right now. Whether it be injury, whether it be the sticky stuff and not graping the baseball and generating as much movement on his pitches. But something is not the same with Corbin Burns from 2 years ago. So good pitcher, real life pitcher, just not like that dominant DFS pitcher that we want.
Exactly.
I think I have to go Schwallenbach over Cease and Skeens. So, I would definitely. What's that?
I said that's a tough one too, picking a second.
Oh, yeah. So, this game's fun. Over 4,000 to hit a home run. Who's going yard today?
Over 4,000 to hit a home run. I am going to go with Colton Cowser. I know we talked about Baltimore quite a bit, but I like Cowser.
Yeah, I like that. I was actually thinking of going Baltimore as well. I think I have to go with my boy Gunnar Henderson. I really like this spot for him against Arrighetti. I think this is a good home run spot. Wish it was in a different ballpark, but I think this is home run number 34 coming tonight for Henderson.
I like it.
Under 4K to get 2 hits. Who's a cheap bet that you like here?
It's someone that we talked about, and there's actually quite a few that I like, especially in the Toronto lineup. But boy, it's hard not to like Wagner in the Toronto lineup. He's super cheap and upsides there tomorrow.
I mean, he's just a staple right now in this question until they get him priced up. I mean, Jackson Holiday was that way for a long time for me. I mean, I feel like people just kind of got sick of me talking about Jackson Holiday. I'm actually going to go to Jackson Holiday to get 2 hits. I think that this is a good spot to get back on track. Again, I think Baltimore is in a good spot today. So I've already feel the Baltimore pain coming. It's coming. Stack to score 6 or more runs. Who's scoring some runs today?
Stack. I am going to go. Yeah, I'm just going to keep sticking with Toronto. I just think they're in a great spot. I just love what they've done recently. So I'm going to stick with Toronto.
I like it. I mean, I'm going to go San Diego. I like the Padres today. I think that they're going to get to Severino. So give me San Diego. Hate it, but I like it. Usually this is where we go to the betting portion of the show. There are no props up. I mean, one team out of this whole slate has props up, and that's Skeens in Pittsburgh, but like just nothing up right now. And it's because like Jake Bloss is like expected to start, but he's not like officially announced yet. So we'll have to kind of see what happens here. But yeah, I don't think we could do any props or pick them. Is there any bets that you like lines wise?
Yeah, kind of the same. Hadn't really looked at it too much, but did notice there wasn't a lot out there. So yeah, not necessarily.
Whale in chat. Parlays are up 17 units. I think we're doing pretty good. I missed the one on Wednesday. It happens to the best of us. Listen, can't get them all. I wish I could get it. Man, I'd be rich if I hit every parlay. I bet I'd be rich. I mean, yeah. So, no parlay for Thursday. Hopefully on Friday we have some odds up, but there's just not a lot up right now. I would say I like Baltimore minus 160. I don't know if I'd bet that by itself at minus 160, but I'd like to see where like Toronto's run line comes in. If you get Toronto and Baltimore both minus 160 and you bet that, I don't hate that idea. So have to kind of see. Ryan asks, Stevie, do you do an NFL podcast? Yes, I do. I'm excited. We do the NFL podcast usually on Wednesday nights. I don't know if that's going to change yet this year. We haven't actually talked about that yet. So we'll see. But yes, we do 6 podcasts a week when NFL season comes around. We do 1 podcast for NFL, and then we keep doing 5 for baseball and 5 for basketball once basketball starts. So that's going to wrap it up here for Thursday. Hope everyone has a fantastic Thursday. Back on Friday. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.